What is an Identity and Access Management or IAM engineer? In this video, you're going to learn about the IAM engineer role. So you'll learn a little overview of the role and what to expect. You'll learn different job titles you might see out there for this particular role in cybersecurity. You'll learn about some of the general job responsibilities. Again, that's going to vary based on where you work. The average base salary, depending on if you're in the US, UK, and India, and you can also just Google search if you live someplace else to see what the average salary is for this particular role. You'll learn about some of the tools you might use, and also if you need a certification or college degree to get into this role. So what is an IAM engineer? Well, one of the key things that you're responsible for, that you'll be doing, is designing, implementing, and maintaining the overall architecture specifically around digital identity management. So things like managing access control, managing permissions, authentication, authorization, auditing trails. So essentially just making sure that the right people, the right systems, the right applications can access the right things and nothing more. So for example, we don't want to have let's just say an application be able to have administrative rights if it doesn't need them, or to have a user account have administrative rights on a host system if they don't actually need those. So that's all this managing is. That's all identity access management is. You'd be surprised when you think about scalability of an enterprise with 10, 20, 50,000, a million systems. It's very difficult to do this. And that's where you come in as an identity access management engineer. So some different job titles are going to be identity engineer, IAM architect, access control engineer, privileged access management or PAM engineer, identity access management integration engineer, and then also federation engineer. Federation is just one way that we basically prove that somebody or something is what it says. So what are some of the job responsibilities for an identity access management engineer? Well, as I mentioned, you're going to be designing and implementing different secure systems as well as procedures for helping to manage those digital identities and also manage access permissions within the organization. So essentially managing the people to make sure that the right people can access right systems, right applications, right? You might hear me say that quite a bit in this video, but that's the overarching goal of identity access management. You'll also be managing user accounts and access control specifically, and you're not going to manually go in and create users. In most cases, at least you shouldn't be doing that. But there are a number of automated tools like Active Directory or in the cloud environments like Google Cloud Identity that you can use for managing that access and creating specific user accounts and automatically assigning those accounts with certain levels of access. You're going to be handling management of the authentication and authorization system. So this is things like the single sign-on or SSO, as well as multi-factor authentication or MFA or two-factor authentication and 2FA. So you'll be managing that authentication and authorization, the systems around that. You'll also be involved in monitoring and analyzing access logs to potentially identify and hopefully prevent different security breaches or unauthorized access. And as part of that, you're also going to be involved in the compliance side. So auditing those logs for compliance to make sure that's matching any regulations or laws the company has to follow, as well as best practices for the industry based on identity access management. You'll, of course, be troubleshooting, figuring out what's going on, why can't Larry in accounting get access to the things that he needs. And then, as I mentioned, you'll be involved in that incident response process, usually in some capacity. It might be after the fact, just helping with auditing logs to help identify how can we manage that better in the future. So what about your paycheck? Well, here in the United States, where I'm located at, generally speaking, the base salary is around $78,000 to mid 100,000s. It can go up higher depending on the organization you're working with. It can also be lower based on where you live and the company you work for. In the UK, about 55,000 to 75,000 pounds, and in India, about 900,000 to 1.5 million rupees. So what are some of the tools that you might use in this particular role? Well, you'll definitely be using some kind of identity access management tools. This might be things like Okta, Azure Active Directory in the cloud space, or Active Directory or OneLogin. You'll definitely, in most cases, be using some type of single sign-on tool. So this could be like Okta, for example. You'll be involved in multi-factor authentication management, SIM tools for analyzing different logs and kind of aggregating that data and getting visualization on it. You'll also be involved in managing what's called Identity and Access Governance Software, or IAG. Basically, that's used to monitor and enforce compliance with regard to different access policies and regulations. It helps automate the certification process, as well as helps to kind of provide that data insight to help assess risk and privilege abuse across the organization. And then, of course, different cloud tools For example, Google Cloud Identity, which is used for identity access management. There's also AWS Identity Access Management, and Microsoft Azure has some as well. So what about certifications? You need to collect a bunch of certs for this role. It really depends on the organization, what they're going to be looking for. Never hurts to have the CompTIA Security Plus. It also never hurts to go see if you can get some of the vendor-specific ones, like SailPoint has one, for example. As you grow your career, you might explore and get some more experience. You might explore some other certs like the CISSP, which is a Certified Information Systems Security Professional. That gives you that broad cybersecurity knowledge. It's kind of like that next level up from Security Plus. We've also got the CISA, which is a Certified Information Systems Auditor. So again, that's more senior level cert or intermediate level cert, but it's around auditing specifically, so you can gain better knowledge of regulations and standards. The Certified Identity Access Management Professional, the CIAMP, that's offered by a place called IIA, and that focuses on the management of digital identities, access controls, and security policies. You've got the Certified Identity Access Manager, or CIAM, that's offered by a place called IAP. They're the same ones that also do the CIPP, the privacy certification. And so that one focuses on digital identities, access controls, and of course, security policies. With any of those certs, I want to stress, though, that you don't have to actually go get the cert. You can also just buy a book or course for a low cost and study the information, and that's still beneficial for your career and for job interviews. So a good way to think of IAM engineering is you're kind of like the bouncer at the club, right, or a nightclub, or security at a restaurant. You determine, in a way, you're trying to keep the bad people out, right? So you've got your list of people allowed to come in, and that's the people, systems, and applications in the organization that are allowed. And then you've got your naughty list, for lack of better terms, where you say, wait a minute, this threat actor is on this list, or this IP address, or this other IOC or indicator of compromise is on this list. I'm not going to let them in, or we don't want to let them in. Also, another key takeaway here, this can be a very lucrative career. So a lot of people actually don't know about this particular career in the cybersecurity world. A lot of people focus on SOC analyst or pen tester or cybersecurity analyst. They forget about different roles like this. So IAM engineer might be a job you find open at companies with very low applicants because nobody is thinking about it. And then you'll, generally speaking, these days be involved in the cloud in some capacity. So if you don't have any cloud skills right now, highly recommend you go study one. Just pick one cloud. You don't have to be an expert in Azure and AWS, and like nobody's an expert in all those, but pick one and get really good at that one, right? So if you want to focus on Google Cloud, if you want to focus on AWS, which right now still has the largest market share, or if you want to focus on Azure or something else based on where you live, I would do that and just focus on one though to build up your cloud skills.